Chris Akiri is also the chairman editorial board of National Daily Newspapers. Thank you for coming on this morning.
It's my pleasure.
All interesting times and, so much going on at the moment. But is there anywhere that our laws seem to be deficient in tackling this challenge that we've got in our hands? Insecurity.
No, I don't think so. The laws are not deficient in any way. We have appropriate laws to deal with the challenges. The only problem we have is the political will to enforce the various laws that we have. In any area of crime, you have the Criminal Act Code. You know, Cap 77 laws of the Federation of Nigeria governing the South. We have the Penal Code Act, Cap 356 of the laws of the Federation of Nigeria governing the North. We have EFCC Act, Cap 2004. We have the ICPC Act 2000. We have all these laws dealing with it, and in recent times we have the Terrorism Act. So what is the problem? It is just the want, I think, absolute want of political will on the part of our leaders.
How do we need a political will for a legal problem? Or is it the administration of justice? Or is it political will or political legal will in the legal or judiciary?
Yes, well, you are right. When we talk of political will, the will of the leaders in government to obey the laws, number one, and to enforce the provisions of the law. So where the leaders, fail to enforce any extant law, we have problems, and that's why we're having all these problems. Either because they are timorous, or because of political reasons, they are not ready to enforce the laws. That's where we find ourselves. That's the reason we find ourselves where we are.
So you're very confident that the security problem now is a matter of political will?
Yes, we don't have that political, but we cannot say, put everything squarely on political will. Yes, much of it is because we don't have the political will.
What should political will be doing in this particular instance?
I beg your pardon?
What would the political will to do anything in this particular instance be doing, assuming it were to be felt or seen?
Okay, for example, you have Boko Haram, for example. Now they are tormenting us by every day. And it's not as if we don't have the Terrorism Act now. It's not as if we haven't got the Criminal Code Act. It's not as if we don't have the Penal Code Act governing the whole of the North. It's not as if we don't have this. So if and any time any person is apprehended, and suspected to be a Boko Haramist, and at least the person is quickly put on trial, after these long bails, and then he's put on bail for a long time, and then he's released on bail, and he's going to stay there forever, and nobody is going to hear of the matter. If you try such people with efficient speed, and you quickly give them condign punishments, appropriate to such crimes, other people will say, oh, if we do this, this is what is going to happen. This is likely, if we are caught. If we are apprehended, this is what is likely to. But where a situation comes where people commit heinous offenses and you let them off the hook, and all the other prospective criminals are watching, that after all, we can just be in detention for a number of days or weeks. At the end of it, we'll be released on bail, and that will be the end of the matter anyway. So what's the problem? Let's go into it.
And that's political will?
That's a political will. They don't have the political will to enforce any law because they are thinking of elections. If we do this one to a particular person from a particular region, during elections, we'll be cut off.
Is it them doing it to the person or the law doing it to the person?
Well, the law is there. The law is not a human being. It is human beings that will enforce the laws. You see, so it is, the law is already there for anybody to hang on to, that this is what I'm doing, this because the law says so.
Mr. Akiri, but we're going to run into problems here, because what might happen is the terrorism suspects, the people who are held in charges of terrorism, might not be able to get a fair trial, because once they are caught and they are politicians, it might be naturally assumed or presumed that they're guilty even before they have been tried.
Well, it doesn't work out that way. I mean, if the person is a politician, is a highly placed politician, now, and you have caught him, not all politicians are caught, but where any politician is caught, however highly placed, he has been caught, and then he has to go through the rigors.
But it doesn't say anything about benefit of the doubt. I mean, you know, giving the person benefit of the doubt that maybe this person was truly not involved. And
no, I mean, the Constitution is there. The Constitution is the front set or ego of the Nigerian legal system. And it says in chapter 36 that every person, every accused person, every suspect is presumed to be innocent until he's proved guilty. Now, so, you know, when you catch any person, whether he's highly placed or not, it doesn't mean that you will just say, oh, okay, the person is already guilty or he's not guilty. You must put him through the rigors of trial, and then the public will see. The courts will determine the guilt or otherwise of this person, but they are not tried.
You
see, this is the problem I'm having.
Mr. Akiri,
people are not tried.
I like to see the two casts we are in now, that of the journalism profession as well as the legal profession this morning. Let's go back to that bombing incident where the press was the main target. The moment.
Who was the main target?
The press.
Okay, yes. Yes.
Now we're talking about this day, the moment, and the Sun newspapers as well as other journalists that have been felled by this same sect before that day.
Yes.
You know, when they talk about the profession, journalism, one should have thought that they report both sides, isn't it?
Yes.
So the aggrieved, the oppressed, and even the oppressor.
Yes.
So in this case, how should someone go about their business now? Or what should the government be doing? Because if the religious places are being bombed on maybe a weekly or monthly basis.
Yes.
And now the journalists, security operatives, it looks like everyone is a target of the Boko Haram sect.
Yeah, we see that is the problem all of us are having. I am having that problem. It's a big one. Because I would have thought that they were limiting this one to politicians, which would have been bad enough, or to security officers, which would have been bad enough. But now they extend it. They extend terrorist attacks to pressmen. I mean, I wonder why the decision was taken by members of this group, or any group for that matter, to target press people who are merely reporting, you know, what is happening. I mean, if there is any attack anywhere, shouldn't the press report it? And if they report what has taken place, if 20 people died, 40 people died, 10 people died, or whatever, they shouldn't say so? Or what has the press done wrong for them to now target the press? That's what I don't understand. And now, you see, originally, because it's good to reason from cause to effect. It's good to look at the whys and wherefores. You see, because every why has a wherefore. Now, it's good to look at the whys of terrorism in Nigeria. Now, the Boko Haram came, and then why are they here? Originally and up till now, they tell us, look, we are here because we want to make Nigeria an Islamic territory. We want to Islamize the whole country. We want to make Nigeria an Islamic theocracy. Now, but at least to extend Sharia law to every part of the north. This is what they've been saying. They've never deviated from this. And this is the reason why so many of us have been calling for national conference, a sovereign national conference, to tackle this issue frontally and then see where we're going. I mean, if their core dovetails into the wishes of the people of the north in general terms, so why can't we sit down and then discuss the structure of this country and then see where we go from there?
The way this, isn't that too late for us as a nation to say we want to sit down and dialogue? Because initially when the government tried dialoguing with the group, we saw it met a brick wall. And now everyone is affected by this. Let's cast our minds back. The government once told the people, the entire nation and the world, that they know these people without even giving us specifics. Now people are being killed, children, adults, everyone is being targeted. Isn't this the time for the government to unmask these people, even if they can't hit back at them? Let people know who these people are, so that when the ordinary Nigerians see them, you can now know that these are the people after you.
Yes, and when I was talking of conference, I wasn't talking of any dialogue with the invisible Boko Haramists. No, I wasn't talking of dialoguing with them. No, because you cannot dialogue with anybody that you cannot see. I'm talking of visible Nigerians sitting down to talk about the nature, the structure of this country. Now, having said that one, I also like to say that there is no way we can get out of this problem, because the whole thing is religio-political. These are the problems we are having in this country, and very closely tied to. You cannot say it's more religious than politics, and you cannot say it's more political than religious. You see, they are closely tied, and the whole thing is that the way I see it, I may be wrong, but the way I see it is that some people in the north don't want power to shift from there, zoning or no zoning. They don't want any power to shift from there at any time. And that's the reason why at the inchoate stage of this administration, or where before Jonathan was elected, we had so many people saying, look, if by any chance this man wins this election, will render this country ungovernable, will make peace a chimerical pursuit in this country. So, and he won, and these things have come now. I mean, our people would say, if the witch cried yesterday, and this morning the baby is dead, you can, comfortably attribute the death of this baby to the cry of the witch yesterday. So you see, we see these things, and if the government, the present government, knows the people behind the mask, like the president came out to say some time ago, that we know them, they've infiltrated everywhere. So if they've infiltrated everywhere, they are in the police, they are in the army, they are in the civil service, they are here, and you know them, or you ought to know them if they are here and there. Or if you don't know them, there is a big problem, because it means there is a deficiency in the realm of intelligence gathering.
If we hold a national conference, do you think we would have thought about the effects of the national conference? Perhaps the outcome, because I mean, a lot of people think that you never know what could be the outcome of that, and whatever the outcome is, if it ends up being drastic, are we ready for it?
Yeah, if it comes up anyway, I mean, because the will of the people means a lot. In terms of Section 14 of the Constitution, you see, the people constitute the sovereignty. The sovereignty of this nation inheres in the people. That's what Section 14 of the Constitution says. So if we inhere sovereignty, then we sit down. Whatever we say should be it. That should be what the nation wants. If what you are saying drastic means the dismemberment of this nation into its component parts, if that's what you mean by drastic, I was trying to read your mind. If that's what you mean, so be it. I mean, if they say, okay, religion. You see, religion is a personal thing. It's a personal communion, your personal communion with your Creator. I mean, so every person should be allowed, like the Constitution says, sections 38, 39, 40, 42, 41, 42, already say we should be, there's freedom of conscience, freedom of worship. I mean, if it is not going to be so, let's sit down, think about it. And then,
okay, even in the light of this challenge we have,
yes,
if administration of justice had been, well, perhaps seemingly foolproof.
Yes.
They just do what they have to do, caring less about what the feelings and the corridors of power is, without pandering to any political party. Do you think it would have sorted this problem out, perhaps at least 60, 70, 80%?
Administration of justice, like you said, if we assumed for a moment, without conceding that it's ever so, if it were to be perfect, if it were to be much better than it is, then would things have taken a different shape?
Yeah.
Is that not your question? But you see, the problem is that these are assumptions. That assumption that if the administration of justice were a bit better than this, it cannot be better than this. At least for
Why
now.
not?
No, for now.
When we hear people say this is a black market injunction,
yes,
and you hear all sorts of adjectives to qualify court judgments.
In my book, the
That's
way
dangerous.
it is, I have a title when a state of emergency was declared in Plateau State.
Yeah.
At that time, I think it was 2004 or so. I wrote a black market state of emergency in Plateau State. There are so many things. See, when the country remains the way it is, if it remains the way it is, we pander to corruption, and the whole thing has become systemic. Then you see, this systemic corruption is also, whether you like it or not, affecting every sector, every facet of the Nigerian socio-political life, including the judiciary. So you see, as long as the nation remains like this, who wants to be left behind in the scheme of things? We want to grab and grab and grab. As long as, discipline is something that flows from the top. It doesn't flow from the bottom. As long as the thing remains like this, and we those people at the bottom are not at the bottom. I'm not saying that because I will not be at the bottom. Those people at the bottom, expect discipline to flow from there.
Yes.
All right.
I was going to ask, my colleague asked earlier on if the Nigerian government was getting the support that it deserved from the people.
Okay.
Do you think
you are asking that question
yes.
now? Now, support from the people, it's a quid pro quo type of thing. You give me, I give you. If you want my support, then you do certain things that are congenial to my own living, to my own life. Now, if you don't, you see, because governance is a social contract. I vote for you to be in power so that you can do this for me to better my life. If you are not doing that, you cannot get my support. So, whether the government is getting enough support from the people depends on whether, you can answer that question either in the positive or in the negative. That is to say, if the government feels it's not getting the right support, the quantum of support it's getting from the people is inadequate, then it should look inward and then say, am I giving to the people what I promised at electioneering campaigns?
This is important because, recently I think a body held a conference, and one of the things that came out was that, say in other countries when terrorist attacks happen, they blame the terrorists. In Nigeria, when it happens, we blame the government, especially since we are all aware of the nature of these attacks and that they're not exactly conventional attacks. Should that be the case?
Yeah, well, you see, the terrorist attack, there can be no, because a few years back, about 5-10 years ago, if anybody had asked the question, could terrorist attacks ever come to Nigeria, I would have answered that question in the negative, because I thought at that time that these things they do in the Middle East, suicide bombing and all that, could never take place here because we value life so much in this country. Until recently, 2010 in particular, when the thing started to rear its ugly head in Nigeria, then all of a sudden I realized that, not everybody in Nigeria values life.
Let me button that.
Yes.
I mean, isn't this something that really is serious? Because if we, the electorate, thought that or had that kind of mindset, it won't happen here. And then government, on the other hand, also says, well, maybe they take things for granted and say it won't happen here. Then it springs up upon us.
Yes.
So, isn't it the typology of what's going on in society also happening in government, such that we gloss over so many things that we should actually focus on to get the nation right?
Yes. You see, every day in this country, we take so much for granted. We don't believe that anybody can do anything because, first of all, anybody elected into government thinks Nigeria has, Nigerians have been afflicted with collective short memory. That we collectively, we have short memory. That, in other words, let anything happen now, however heinous may be the crime against Nigerians by the government. They will say, I'm sure, you could hear them say to themselves, don't worry. They will give it 1 or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. They will forget, including the press.
Isn't that a fallacy?
Oh, yes, it is a fallacy that Nigerians will forget. But when you say it's a fallacy, and I'm agreeing with you, it's only after a fashion. Because much of the time, it's not a fallacy. We forget so easily. If anything happens now, somebody is reported to have stolen 10 billion naira, 16 billion naira, 16,000 billion dollars, and so on. We will make a hue and cry.
No, do we forget?
That. But after a short time, people forget, or even if they don't forget, so many people will tell them, forget about that.
Yeah, but can we really say they forget about it, or it scars them and they just wait for the time? Maybe they bottle it up and wait for a time to express themselves. Because if they will not be heard,
Chamberlain. They don't bottle anything up in Nigeria.
Well,
we just forget about it, and that is it forever.
Mr. Akiri,
one issue I wanted him to look at now, when we talk about all of this, it just occurred to us that is the end of the month, and I remember the President specifically did say all this will be over in the month of June.
Yes.
And tomorrow is the 1st of May,
yes,
meaning we have just less than 60 days to go.
Yes.
Should we still wait and look towards June that all of this will magically come to an end?
No, Sulai, I tell you that was a wishful thinking on the part of the President, if I may say so with the profoundest respect. I mean, how can you say all this? What have you put on the ground?
Maybe he's got information that, of course.
No, you see, what have you put on? What is on the ground to suggest that all these things will be over even at the end of this year? I mean, unless the right things, if you take first things first. Yes, but what have you on ground? Is it not the same security agencies? Because for all I know, we are not doing enough. The security agencies are not doing enough. Information gathering, intelligence gathering is completely wanting in this country.
But they've been able to foil some of these
a situation in which
attempts.
Americans would know beforehand, that there is going to be something there in Abuja or anywhere. Okay, everybody should get away from that place. And we don't know here. With all the security gadgets that we have in this country, other countries will know, Britain, America will know that there's going to be something there. If we were into serious information gathering or intelligence gathering, this type of thing wouldn't happen. So, and we don't have that in place. So to suggest that by June this year, everything is going to go off, I mean, it's wishful. If anything, you can see the intensification.
Mr. Akiri, that brings us to this complex we always have about ourselves and for ourselves on even institutions here in Nigeria.
Yes.
Now, if the international community, for instance, can know through their own intelligence gathering to
yes,
say there's going to be an attack in Abuja and some other places in Nigeria, and it comes out to be true,
yes,
isn't that the same attitude we see even with people in government, that when they want to pass out some vital information, they still rely on international media?
Correct.
Boko Haram inclusive?
Yes, that's the problem we've always had. That is the problem we've always had. They treat Nigeria and Nigerians with nonchalant unconcern. And that's the problem we've always had. Before you know it here, they've already known it in London. If a senior political officer, a senior official of the Nigerian government wants to say something, he won't say it in Nigeria to the Nigerian press to externalize. No, he may want to get, if he's going on a tour, or going on a state visit somewhere in London or America, so he will wait until he gets there to say it, so that the media in those countries will now let us know here in Nigeria what our leader is thinking about us. It's the same thing. And it is the same way Nigerians are treated. we are treated with nonchalant unconcern, like I said. Because, see, look at it like this. When I get to a house, if I get to a house and I enter your living room and it is littered with stubs of cigarette that you snuffed out, and it's all over the place, piece of paper littering everywhere. Now, if I were a smoker and I had smoked my own cigarette, I would put it on the ground right in your living room and snuff the fire out of this thing and leave it there.
Even though you could use the bin.
Even if I could use the bin. But if I entered your room and it was so clean, tidy everywhere, beautiful, now then you were smoking, you'll be so careful not to allow any of the ashes to fall down to the ground. You'll be so careful. You draw this thing to yourself and then put it inside this place.
Is that an absolute situation?
Now, yeah, that's the way it should be. So when foreigners who have been looking at the way Nigerian governments treat Nigerians, their own citizens, and they come here, they do whatever they like to us. Because this is the way their government treat them. In fact, if we treat them this way, they should be happy.
Is that justifiable?
It's not justifiable.
Because in the same way that we hear people who seem to be saying, alluding to the causative factors on why we have this insecurity challenge, we have people also asking, are they making excuses for them? Because no matter what happens, nobody has the right to take another person's life.
Yes, nobody has the right to take another person's life. But here in this country, I just told you that even when somebody has taken somebody's life against the provisions of all the laws that we have, both extant and the other. Now, we don't seem to care, we don't seem to worry about the fact that somebody has taken somebody else's life, just like that. We don't worry. I mean, there are so many pending cases of executive assassinations in this country that are still lying there. You have not been able to unearth the causes or the people who were responsible for what. The cases are still lying there and it will be there forever and a day, maybe. Whereas in London,
that's your department, the judiciary.
A baby was decapitated, the head was not there, some of the legs one of the two legs, was off. And then the British government took it upon itself, took the trunk of this baby, found out what it is, because human life is so valuable. They value human life. They found out, tried to do this, and at the end of the day, they caught up with the person who murdered him.
Mr. Akiri,
but it's not so in Nigeria.
Mr. Akiri,
yes.
I think talking about the cases of forgotten files of people who have murdered,
yes,
brings us back again to
like X-Files
to the spirit of forgetfulness,
yes,
of the Nigerian polity.
Yes.
Do you think it could also be a coping mechanism?
Whether it could be what?
A coping mechanism. I mean, it's a mechanism that Nigerians just used to cope. Because if you think so much,
yes,
as to what has happened in the past,
yes,
how do you get to move ahead?
Yeah, well, you see, we move ahead for thinking about the past too. You see, in terms of psychoanalysis, if you want to progress in life, move ahead. Don't think of the past. But in socio-political terms, you have to think of the past. Because like I've always said, if you don't know the history of your country, if you don't know the history of your area, your territory, you cannot govern that place very well. You must know what happened in the past. For example, all those people who were killed in the past now, the identity of whose killers have not been established, if we don't think about them and we say, okay, we only think about those who will be killed in the future, we will not be able to get those people who kill others in the future. If we don't unearth those people who killed the past people.
But almost in the same vein, because I mean, anywhere in the world where terrorist activities happen, government has some form of information.
Yes.
Because government, we can't underestimate government here.
Yes.
What could be going on wrong? Because every time we hear people say, listen, you have to do something. What should we be doing? All these questions have come up for the umpteenth time.
Yes.
Yet.
Yes, you see, they have information and nobody is going to doubt the fact that this government has information about what and who are responsible for what and what. We cannot doubt that. And that's the reason why I talked of the political will. You see, people are afraid of what would happen if certain people from certain parts of this country are taken on headlong. They are taken on, and then so, or they will say they are accusing, they are attacking our own people. They are attacking our own people. So election time will come, and they will not vote for us. So we have to be careful, and we don't want anybody to rise up in insurrection against us.
What if it's beyond
this fear?
What if it's beyond people voting for them or not?
Yes.
Because if he's in a situation wherein he says, well, he have to save a lot more lives, because if he confronted the way Nigerians are asking him to confront it, if the consequences were a lot dire than what seems to be going on, perhaps that might justify maybe the way they're going about it.
Yeah, but you see, you cannot underestimate the importance of this political thing I was talking about. For example, the current president would want to come in again in the year 2015.
We can't say that for sure.
No, I know. I mean, I said he may want to come in. And
he may not want to come in.
He may not want to come in, but in case he wants to come in, let's put it that way.
Okay.
Because we can't ever say which one is correct. Now, if he wants to come in, he will be the South, he may take the South for granted that, well, since I'm from the South people will vote for me anyway. Then the North, he will say, well, I have to do certain things. I have to be careful. I have to be circumspect in order to avoid the odium of these people. I mean, I don't want a situation in which they will come, that time will come, and they will say, oh, this person is pandering to the whims and caprices of Southerners. So he's a Southern person. But so he will want to do everything possible.
What if he doesn't
to overlook whatever problems that comes from the North?
What if he doesn't want to come in?
If he doesn't want to come in, well, then he may do something. You see, there is a difference between a first-timer, a first governor who is spending his first year, and then who is doing a second term. When he is doing his first term, he is extremely circumspect, in order not to offend people. But when he is in his second and final term, whatever he does, he doesn't care too much about what he does.
What if he doesn't want to come in first time?
If he doesn't want to come in, you see, it's not even whether if he doesn't want to come in or not. If I were president of this country, whether I want to come in second time or not, I would take serious actions against any person. This nation will not be what it is.
What would you do differently that hasn't
What I have to do differently is to look at the laws. If you go from the sublime to the ridiculous, I hold you accountable, and you are going to be accountable on the spur of the moment. I'm not going to spare you, whether your name is my name or not. That is the way. That's the way any society should go.
Do you think they'll let you emerge if that is what you're going
to
do?
Well. But that's why I remain what I am. I am not in government. I'm not this one, because I say it the way it is, which is the title of my book. I say it the way it is. You have to say it the way. Otherwise, you see a situation in which people fawn on people in government so that they can go there, or so that they can retain their positions. And that's the reason why this country
it brings us back to the Constitution, which you say is enough.
Yes.
For us to move on as a nation.
Yes. The Constitution is here, and there are also statutes. There are also other laws, which under Section 315 of the Constitution, are regarded as existing laws. That is other than this Constitution. There are existing laws there. We have, for example, the Criminal Code Act, Cap 77 laws of the Federation of Nigeria. We have the Penal Code Act. We have all these other laws and statutes. You see? So, and we don't want to obey them, and yet we say we are governed by the rule of law and due process. So, that's the problem.